Okay, hello. This is an introduction to The Collector by John Fowles. You might be interested in using this for your coursework. That's what my cover looks like. It gives away some of the plot. You'll notice a girl being caught in a net. Gives you an idea of what it's about. This is a really interesting text, particularly for narrative technique. It's got two narrators, which is, it's nicely done. The first narrator is an unreliable narrator, the voice of the person who does the collecting of the girl. And it builds up a really, really grim sense of dread very effectively. Then in the middle, well, 2/3 of the way in, we get the voice of the girl. So it's nice, you get this perspective change halfway through, and then you go back to the chap at the end. So it would go well with Lolita for an unreliable narrator, or something like Room, which I haven't given an extract from. That was written by Emma Donoghue. That was written from the victim's perspective, and this novel has both. It's a little bit gothic, but a little bit horrific. I think it's fair to say. So if I just read the opening section and then talk about some of the ways that John Fowles achieves this. When she was home from her boarding school, I used to see her almost every day sometimes, because their house was right opposite the town hall annex. She and her younger sister used to go in and out a lot, often with young men, which of course I didn't like. When I had a free moment from the files and ledgers, I stood by the window and used to look down over the road, over the frosting, and sometimes I'd see her. In the evenings, I marked it in my observations diary, at first with X, and then, when I knew her name, with M. I saw her several times outside too. I stood right behind her once in a queue at the public library down Crossfield Street. She didn't look once at me, but I watched the back of her head and her hair in a long pigtail. It was very pale, silky, like burnet cocoons, all in one pigtail coming down almost to her waist, sometimes in front, sometimes at the back. Sometimes she wore it up. Only once, before she came to be my guest here, did I have the privilege to see her with it loose, and it took my breath away. It was so beautiful, like a mermaid. Another time, one Saturday off, when I went up to the Natural History Museum, I came back on the same train. She sat 3 seats down and sideways to me and read a book, so I could watch her for 35 minutes. Seeing her always made me feel like I was catching a rarity, going up to it very careful, heart in mouth, as they say. A pale clouded yellow, for instance. I always thought of her like that. I mean, words like elusive and sporadic and very refined, not like the other ones, even the pretty ones. More for the real connoisseur. If that doesn't make you terrified and creeped out, it's very clever. And, he's trying to sound reasonable, but it's very, very scary. And also this ongoing symbolism, imagery, that he's a butterfly collector. And he often compares her to certain kinds of butterflies, and his way of following her and trying to catch her is very similar to why and how you like to catch butterflies. Also a bit like Anita Loos in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Now perhaps this is just something that English writers do. If they want you to mistrust a character, they give them grammatical errors or just a bad style of speaking and writing. So he uses a flat adverb at one point when he says, I can't find it now, but he doesn't use a proper adverb. Or he starts with very colloquialisms, or uses a lot of cliches. So this idea that he's a person of a limited, unintellectual mind, unimaginative. So The Collector is a very good one for that kind of narrative voice, having an unreliable narrator, tension, and having more than one narrator as well, and the effect that has. And, getting a reader into the mind of what is clearly a diseased person, if you want to compare and contrast two texts that do that.